Hello everyone, Allison joining you again today. Thank you for stopping in and spending some time with me. I wanted to share with you a process video of a layout that I made using mixed media techniques. This is new territory for me. So I'm fairly new to it, but I'm having so much fun playing around with it. And I wanted to show you how I create my watercolor mixed media backgrounds. So to start, I use some spray pens. In this case, I used Glacier and Wisteria. I put those inks in the spray pen and then added some alcohol to the mixture as well. And then spray it on the background. I do prep the paper beforehand with some gesso so that it doesn't soak through. It seals the paper and prevents that ink and water basically from soaking through the paper. It's amazing stuff. I love using it. It's especially good to use if you can't find or don't have watercolor paper that's 12 by 12 in size. This would be a perfect tool for you to add to your stash. I also like to add a couple of layers of color to my watercolor backgrounds as well. All that really means is I follow one process. It's just a couple of steps, and I do that over and over a couple of times until I'm happy with the way that the background looks. Mostly I do it to help intensify and deepen the color if I want it to be a little more vibrant and vivid. You'll also notice too that to help speed up the drying process, I use my heat tool. And as that water and ink is moving around the paper, I use paper towel or Kleenex just to dab at it a little bit so that it doesn't spread too far, because I didn't want the watercolor areas to be too terribly big on my layout. As I was working, I decided to add a little bit more watercolor color to the top left-hand side of my scrapbook layout as well. I plan to add the title up in that corner and a few other embellishments, and I felt that it would be just a little too plain, so I decided to go back and add a little bit more color to that area as well. I'm so happy with the way that the watercolor in the background turned out. I love the blue and the purple together. It looks so pretty. The next thing I was doing was gluing the circle die cut to my layout. I cut that with my Cricut. I actually happened to find it by chance. I wasn't looking for an image like that. I was looking for something totally different. Couldn't even tell you now what it was that I was looking for, but it was something totally different. And when I found it, I knew that I had to use it right away, and I had an idea for how I was going to use it right off the bat. I was also looking for a kite image as well, which is what you see me working on right now. There was a bunch of little pieces that all cut separately and needed to be glued together after they were cut, so that's what I'm doing right now. I cut the base of the kite from white cardstock, and then I used Lagoon and Sage cardstock to cut the little bows on the end of the kite and the panels that go inside the kite. Later on, after I got this all glued together, I kind of decided that it would look really good if I dry embossed the color panels on the kite. So later on this video, you are going to see two other panels that I cut again from my Cricut and then embossed, and I glue that on top of what's already there. I kind of thought about tearing them off and decided rather than just playing with it, I'll throw it right on top. I did originally stamp some leaves on the white portions of the kite, but I didn't like it so much. I didn't think it was going to stand out enough and essentially just be enough. So I decided to add some embossing as well. I cut the title and the clouds from my Cricut as well and put all of those together to make this really super simple and really sweet scrapbook layout. You can see now that I'm playing with a stamp set from Close to My Heart. It's called Woodland Friends, I believe. It's new release from Close to My Heart, and it's a super adorable stamp set. I stamped the deer and the owl from the stamp set in intense black ink, and then I'm going to color them in with my Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend markers. I use the tan marker to color the deer in, and I use the earth brown Tri-Blend marker to color in the owl. You're going to see that here in just a little bit. Oh, look at that. I'm ahead of the game. I kind of lost where I was in terms of the video on the screen that I'm looking at and paying more attention to talking than actually paying attention to what's happening in the video. So I got a little bit ahead of myself. So right now I'm coloring in those two images, the deer and the owl. At this point, I wasn't entirely sure I really wanted to use the owl. And if I did, I wasn't really sure where it was going to go on the layout. In my head, I was thinking it would probably go up somewhere around the title. And eventually, I do add it sort of to the title, but it's closer to the journaling strips, which you'll see later on in the video, than the actual title cluster. And I knew when I stamped and colored in the deer that 100% it was going to be used in the layout, and it was going to go at the very bottom of the picture where the trees are. I think you'll see that in a bit too coming up, layered amongst the trees, and it looks super duper cute. I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. Once both images are finally colored in and ready to go, I fussy cut them. There's no thin cuts that goes along with the stamp set, so I went old school on it and cut them out. And I did that off camera just to speed up the process. There's a lot going on in the video already, and I didn't want to bore you with extras. Coloring is a great time to think ahead in your crafting, in the crafting process, and kind of think of other little things, embellishments and knickknacks and things that you want to add to your layout or your card if you're working on a card as you are coloring. So while I'm coloring, I'm sitting thinking that I really want to add some layering behind the picture that's going in the layout. I found some pattern paper that has been in my stash for quite a while, and so I layered that behind the photo. The photo is 4 by 4 inches, and so I trimmed the pattern paper to slightly larger than that. You can see that it's already matted to my photo. I did that off camera as well. But I decided to take some scrap stencil sheets that I had and trim them down to little strips, and I layered them along the photo as well, just to give the appearance that there was like a really long strip of stencil paper there, but there really isn't. And then because I added just a little bit too much adhesive on the back side of it, I trimmed down some scrap paper just to cover it up, and then layered or glued the picture to my layout with some foam squares. I did that for a reason. Like I said, when I color, I think ahead, and I was thinking to myself as well while I was coloring that I wanted to add some sewing thread to my layout as well, just some white sewing thread. So to pop up the picture with some foam squares would make it easy for me to tuck in the sewing thread around the picture later on. You're going to see that in the video in a bit here too. And it's right here that I added those two other panels that I embossed with my Cuttlebug to the kite. Did you notice that? I just about forgot I'd done it, but there it is. So now I am just, what am I doing here? I'm adding the embellishments, the trees, to the bottom of my layout. I've got a cloud that I'm going to be layering behind the kite. I popped that up with some foam squares as well, just to give it the illusion that it is actually flying in the sky. I'm also just adding a couple extra foam squares behind the photo as well, because I noticed it was looking really flat in some places and I didn't want it to be that way. So I added just a few more foam squares to fix that. Now comes the trees. I'm just adding them with some liquid glass. I'm using my tweezers as well to help pick them up so I don't get gluey fingers while I'm doing this. Yeah, so basically all I'm doing right now is just gluing everything to the layout. I know where I want them to go, and I'm really happy with the way that I had it or have it laid out. So now it's time to commit. I'm just throwing everything down, putting some foam squares where I want things to be popped up and have a little bit more dimension, and glue on other pieces as well. And in just a minute here, after I got the title glued to the layout, I'm going to cut some strips from white cardstock to write some journaling on. And I'm also going to add the deer and the owl that I had colored and then fussy cut earlier on in this video. I knew that I wanted to add the journaling underneath the title. Yeah, here you can see I'm playing around with the placement for the owl. I really didn't know where I wanted him to go, or if I was even really going to use him. After I got the journaling strips cut and then I'd written the journaling on it, I plopped him beside the journaling strips and thought it looked really cute there. So at that point, I decided that the owl probably would stay in the layout, and he was going to live over by my journaling strips. The journaling strips were a work in progress up to this point too. I had it in my head that I was going to type some journaling up on my computer and then cut them out into strips and glue them to the layout that way. But I decided as things were going that I was just going to cut strips from scrap paper that I already had in my stash and just handwrite the journaling for something different. I've done the typing a couple of times now, and I think it was time for a change. And I also knew that it was going to go beneath the title right from the very beginning. That was the plan. So you can see I added some sewing thread behind the photo. I think I grabbed some more sewing thread, tripping over my words, and add it to another place just underneath the photo. But I think before I did that, I wrote out my journaling, so you can see me doing that right now as well. If you really like this layout, I have a little treat for you. If you head over to my Facebook page, I will include a link at the end of this video so that you can get there. I have posted a link to my Facebook for a free cut file. And basically, I kind of think of this cut file as my first ever sketch in a way. It's not really a sketch, but it sort of is. The reason I did it was because I have such a hard time remembering my designs when I have them stuck in my head. As soon as I think of it, they poof, disappear. So I figured while I'm cutting images anyways from my Cricut for my layout, why not make sort of a sketch so that if I forget, I can refer back to it and know exactly what it was that I was thinking and where things were going to go. So back to the sewing thread. Yeah, I did add a little bit more to just above the deer where the deer is living. Isn't that deer super cute? Oh, I just love it. And I've also found still that there wasn't enough foam squares behind my photo, so I added just a few more there as well. I also knew that I wanted to add some word phrases from the So Much Happy collection from Close to My Heart. This is a really old collection and is no longer available from Close to My Heart, but I really, really love the word phrases and those alpha stickers down at the bottom of the sticker sheet. I really want to get more, and one of these days I will. I put them on scrap paper as well and then cut them out so that I could move them around before committing to gluing them down. I knew the first one that I put just above the deer was going to go there. There was no question. So after I had it on the paper, I took some liquid glass and just glued it to the side of the tree picture sort of thing. And then the other two I needed to play around with just a little bit until I found a place that I was happy with for them to live, and then I left them there. I also wasn't sure I really wanted to use the dark green because it was so much darker than the sage green that I had used. But then I figured, well, it's the same color family. It's going to work. I'm going to make it work. And actually, now looking back on it, I really do like it. It works really, really well. So there's that little owl. He finally did find a home around the journaling down near the bottom. And I'm just finishing up with a few other embellishments and that pretty well brings me to the end of my layout. Oh, I do actually not end, but I add the title down at the bottom of the layout below the photo. And with that, I am done this layout. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a lot of fun sharing this layout with you, and I had a ton of fun creating the layout too, to begin with. If you want to see more videos like this, please make sure you hit like and subscribe, and you won't miss anything from me if you make sure you click on that little bell. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you all, and I will see you again very, very soon.